Hey there, Cathy McLeish, back here with Alcoholism Unpacked. And today I want to talk about a topic that is so close to my heart, and that is I'll stop drinking if you stop drinking. I'll stop drinking when you stop drinking. If you would stop drinking as much as you drink, then maybe I'd think about stopping drinking, and not until. So that is the way I lived the last several years of my drinking, because I was living with another alcoholic who was a practicing alcoholic who I felt drank worse than I drank. I felt he drank more than I drank. And this alcoholic mind, I had a way of seeing things that really benefited me and not a lot of other people. And when I was looking out at everybody else, it was pretty easy for me not to look at myself. And I could always find somebody that was doing something a little worse than me, a little different than me, and it would make me feel a little better about the way that I was living my life, which was horrible. I was living my life in a way that no mother feels good about living, no spouse, no daughter, no sister. And yet the way that I dealt with that was to look outside of myself and take everybody else's inventory and look at them and point out their faults. And then I could feel a little bit better about the ways that I was failing myself. Not failing you, not failing all of those people I've mentioned, but failing myself, because that was where it really hurt. I knew that I had potential, that P word. I knew that I had gifts and talents. I knew that I actually had values, and I had learned ways of living that were not consistent with the ways that I was living, and everything inside of me was in conflict. And yet, I was waiting for somebody else to change so that I would change. And you can do that. You can do that until the day you die. But how does that benefit me? It never did. It never made my life any better. Waiting for someone else to change so that I could change, so that I might change, so that I would be forced to change was never a great idea. And so, not by my own virtue, quite by accident, quite by, me not wanting to do it, but having to do it, I got sober. And I got sober in an atmosphere where my partner, who was another alcoholic, I don't know who was worse, who was better, who drank more, we just drank differently. I got sober in that atmosphere one day at a time. And I can just say, I am so glad that I did. I'm so glad I did not wait. Now, the first 8 months, and I say 8 months because it was definitely like branded into my brain how long it took that person to stop drinking while I wasn't drinking. That's how long. 8 months. And it was 8 months of total misery. And you know why? Did it have to be? I don't think so. It was totally 8 months of misery, because that's all I could focus on was, why don't you change? Why am I the only one changing? And the freedom that I got, that I almost believe set him free, was the day that I said, I can't control it. I can't do anything about him. I can't focus on him. I can't carry him and carry me. I've got enough to do to take care of myself. I had more than enough to do to take care of myself. The day that I laid that person down, set them aside, and said, I'm going to take care of this person right here, and look at the needs and the wants and the desires and the disciplines that need to happen in my life, and I will let them be somebody else's problem. The day that I did that, I almost believe that person was set free to do the same in their life, because that's about the same time that they got sober, which is kind of irrelevant to my point. If they had never gotten sober, it was still what I needed to do to set myself free, to look at myself and to stop looking at everything through this lens of another person and what they were and were not doing in their life. And so I'll get sober when you get sober. It's kind of like saying, I'll show you, I'll hurt me. I will continue to go down this path of self-destruction because I'm not going to change until you change. I mean, how many relationships fall apart because I'm going to wait for you to change before I do anything different? And it is like that dying to self, that dying to my ego. I can be the first one to make a change. I can be the first one to say, I'm sorry. I can be the first one to say, I was wrong. I usually am the first one to be wrong. You thought I was going to say I'm sorry or to... Anyways, I usually am wrong. And so not having to pretend that I'm perfect, not having to act like I have all the answers, there is a freedom in that alone. Forget the alcoholic drinking, just living life, not having to have all the answers, not having to have every solution to everyone's problem, to be able to say, I don't know. What do you think we can do? I don't know. Who do you think we can ask? That has almost been the segue to every success, to every, accomplishment that I've had in sobriety. It has first started with saying, I don't know. Can you help me? First, it was my drinking. I don't know how to stay sober. Neither of us do. But guess what? I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you to teach me. And then a day at a time, I'm going to start this new life. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to say it's okay. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to say, I'll do it with you. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to say, I'm worse than you, so let me give up first. It's not the answer. It was never the answer for me, though I could never see it. But so much of it was ego. Even though I would have said that person has more ego than me because of different ways that they acted, I had this self-destructive nature that had a little bit of self-pity going for it, a little bit of poor me, look at what he's doing, look at what he's not doing. And I hid behind all of that with actually a great big puffed up ego that was really telling myself, I'm not as bad as you, so I'm not doing anything until you do something. In fact, I don't even know that I need to do something, because if you did something, I probably wouldn't drink the way that I do. That is really the truth that I was selling myself. And in reality, all I was doing was cheating myself out of the life that I was intended to live. I was supposed to have a pretty good life all of those years. And I was working against myself the whole way because I had my feet dug in. You couldn't tell me what to do, and I was not the problem. And there's really no room for growth and freedom in a mindset like that is so locked down. Somebody else has to change. And, even when I'm the first to cry uncle and you feel like, you surrendered and you gave up and you were the loser, the real truth is I can only change myself. But when I change myself, so much else changes. And maybe that person changes and maybe they don't. But everything around me changed for the better. In some way, shape, or form, when I stopped drinking, when I took care of myself, when I did the next right thing for me, there was a pebble in the pond ripple effect that made the lives of everybody in my life better. Now, for some, it wasn't immediate. My parents had to see a lot of things get worse before they got better. My children even had to watch things get worse before they got better. But when I look back at the changes over this period of time, even though there were hard years, there were hard months, there were hard weeks, overall, it was such a fabulous turn of events that shaped the lives of people for decades to come. After I first put down the drink and said, can you help me? So I can tell myself, I'm not going to stop until you stop. I'm not going to do anything different until you do something different. I'm not as bad as you, so you need to change first. But I need to remember that when I say that, I lock myself in this prison of no change. And for the alcoholic, when there is no change, there's change. There is some really true change. And here's what it is. Things get worse. Things always got worse for this alcoholic. I would think I would change when this happens, and then it would happen, and the scale would just go down a little bit, and I would accept this new, worse life. I would lower my standards for myself and things around me. Yeah, things would change, but never for the better. So it was up to me, and yet it's a privilege that I have that power to change myself in spite of what you're doing and live a better life. So making that phone call, reaching out, asking that question, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Those were the beginning steps that I had to take to introduce to myself a way of living I never dreamt was going to be so successful, so invigorating, so rewarding, not just for myself, but for the people that I love too. So, Cathy McLeish, Alcoholism Unpacked. Thanks for listening, and I hope that this helps to raise a little bit of awareness about the disease of alcoholism, about the thinking that does not serve us, and how we might get on the other side of that today and for us, not just for us, but for us and the people that we love and their futures. Thanks.